Hello everybody, and welcome back to Quest 64. We are here again in Conifer Forest, only this time I have come to the entrance. Last video I left off in the little hut to the left, and as you can see I have grinded quite a bit. I have nearly 80 health and nearly 25 MP, and I've also worked on putting some elements some spirits into some of my elements. And my goal before reaching the boss is to have 24 MP and 13 wind points. And I will explain a little bit more about that later. However, I'm here at the beginning of the forest because I've finally figured the place out, and we're going to go and collect everything that there is to get. So I'm going to go to the right hand side first, which is the wrong way to go if you're trying to get to the boss. And you can always do this later if you choose, because we will be coming through the gate that's on this side of the forest at a later date. But I want to get all the stuff now and get it out of my way. You can see there's a spirit right beside us. There are 5 spirits total, and we got 2 of them previously in the last video. So I am not having as much difficulty with these battles as I was when I first got in here. I can definitely hold my own. My staff is doing a lot of damage. Not so much right now, apparently. My magic is also doing quite a bit of damage, and I can now heal up to 6 HP at a time instead of 4, which is very, very helpful. So I'm definitely not worried about the boss. The reason that I want to have 13 points put into wind is because that should allow me to learn level 3 wind cutter. And with level 3 wind cutter, I should be able to defeat the boss in 8 turns, which is pretty good. That's a pretty minimal amount. It'll just make my life a lot easier. There's other methods of doing it, of course, but that's just the method that I am going to go with. And I think by the time that I collect everything and I fight these monsters, I will definitely have more than I need. Because there's still a few spirits that we have to pick up, and I might be able to pick up a spirit or 2 from fighting all these monsters. My strategies haven't really changed. I do prefer to do long range if I can. However, my staff is quite powerful. And so I also want to preserve my magic so that I can heal myself. So I have been attacking the enemies up close and then using all of my MP to heal after the battle, which seems to be working okay. I do need to remember to use my magic, however, so that my MP can level up. Because the more that I'm in battle up front on the front lines, the more HP that I'll gain, but that doesn't necessarily mean that I'm going to gain any MP. So, and we're almost at the end of the right hand side here, and like I said, we'll be coming here a little bit later. Unfortunately, you can't actually read what that sign says, but it's another dungeon type area we're going to have to pass through once we take care of that nasty thief that has been terrorizing the poor people of Donderin. So I just went down there for that spirit and that chest, and we're going to continue on to the left, going past the hut where we left off last time. So I think while I do these battles, I will take the opportunity to talk more about elements, because I've mentioned that for the last couple of videos that I keep meaning to talk about it, but I don't really have the time, or I forget, or something comes up, or what have you. It's a really important kind of discussion to have, especially because this is the first dungeon, and you are getting to the point now where you're getting quite a few spirits. So like I mentioned before, water is pretty fundamental to your playthrough because you're able to heal, and you also get a couple of other spells, such as Escape, which can be useful later on. And then the more you power up water, the more you're able to heal, and you can also combine water with other elements and create some really cool spells. I'm going to keep mine at 10 right now. I don't think I need to put any more spirits into it for the time being. I'm going to wait until after the boss battle, and then I'll probably put more points into water. Wind allows you to manipulate the powers of wind, obviously. You can see here that a lot of the enemies in the beginning of the game are using wind. So if you choose to go with wind, you'll probably notice it to be pretty weak at the beginning of the game, but by the end of the game, it's arguably probably the best magic to have. It has one of the best magic abilities that you could possibly use. Great for multi-targeting attacks. So that's why I chose to have wind, because mostly for its multi-targeting purposes, and also because it comes in great handy later on. It's so useful. My wind cutter's at level 2 right now, and as it increases it gets more range and there'll be more little wind blades that pop out, and I'll be able to show that off later so you can better see its very, very destructive powers. So that's my second choice, was wind. There's not anything else that you can do with wind as far as I know. There's not any sort of buffs or anything like that, and there's not really anything particularly special about wind other than the fact that by the end of the game it really pays off. So you might want to reconsider either earth or fire. Fire is essentially just the destruction magic. The reason I didn't go with fire is because it literally has nothing to offer except for pure destructive power. It has some of the most powerful spells in the game, both close range and long range. However, there's a couple problems with fire. Of course, first of all, like I said, doesn't really offer anything except for destructive magic power, no healing abilities, no buffing abilities, nothing like that. And the second problem is that the second half of the game, a lot of the enemies are fire-based, and so your magical power decreases anyways, and so you're left with fire that probably isn't going to actually end up being as powerful as you originally thought it was. With that being said, I don't want to discourage anybody from using fire because it is really neat and they do have some really cool magical abilities. However, strategically, I just feel it's not the best for me. Although fire is very, very useful at the beginning of the game. So if you're finding that you're using fire at the beginning of the game, you probably won't have to do nearly as much grinding as I'm doing, because your fire magic will literally just rip through all of these enemies. I chose to do it the opposite way, where, you know, the beginning is kind of a struggle, but then after that it's just pretty, I wouldn't say a cakewalk, but, you know, I'm not struggling near the end of the game when things start to get really, really tough. And lastly, the last element is earth. And I've talked a little bit about this. I've talked about rock. Very, very useful at the beginning of the game, and it kind of carries through the rest of the game. There's a couple of areas where the enemies are earth heavy, but I feel it's a pretty well-rounded ability. It's got some really great long-range abilities, some short-range abilities. It has an attack, or you get one of the spells, I think it's called Avalanche, very, very late in the game, and it's probably one of the most overpowered abilities in the game, especially for bosses, which will be useful later on. And you also get Magical Shield, which pretty much nullifies magical damage, and most enemies in this game, and most bosses, do magical damage. So, with having the three that I've picked, with having Wind Cutter that has very, very good magical properties, especially later on in the game, paired with water that can heal and help me out in tight situations, paired with earth that allows me to create a magical barrier and give me some very powerful magic, I feel like I've made a good choice. However, it's nice to know that the game is pretty much doable no matter what combination you pick. It's just that some combinations are going to be harder than others. So if you were, for example, to choose water and fire, I would probably consider that one of the hardest choices to make in the game. And if you didn't choose water at all, well then I think that would be suicide, but I am sure that it could be done if people took a lot of careful planning and did a bunch of grinding. There's no doubt in my mind that there's probably someone who's done a quest no healing run or something like that, some crazy person. But I'm pretty happy with how things have started so far. This, by the way, is the last enemy in the forest that I haven't really had a chance to introduce. This is the man trap. It's weak to fire if you have fire magic, but it's not a very tough enemy overall. It's got physical attacks instead of magical attacks, which I find don't hurt as much. And I've actually also gained some HP in this video, which is great. My HP keeps going up really quickly because at this point I'm pretty much letting myself be a punching bag for these enemies because I'm pretty grinded out, really. And I think I'll also post a list or a review of these elements and their properties in the description for anyone, because as I'm playing, sometimes my thoughts get scattered and I'm not sure if I forgot to explain something or if I under-explained or over-explained. But that's the beauty of this game, is you can pretty much do what it is that you want. That was just my advice, and I'm just explaining what it is that I'm doing, but your possibilities are pretty good, especially since you have 4 to choose from, and you get 90 different spirits. My staff is also missing a lot, which I do not like at all. Sometimes it depends on how close you are to an enemy or how far away you are. And sometimes it just depends on how the enemy moves. There's nothing more annoying than an enemy that sways back and forth and every once in a while jumps in the air. And then at that exact moment that you swing your staff, they jump in the air and your attack misses. I've had that happen, which I'm not too fond of at all. So we're almost at the end of the path here. I'm trying to run away from monsters just because I want to finish up the last little bit of collecting. There we go. Let my camera pan out. And our last spirit is here. And that's all that she wrote. That's all that there was to grab. 5 spirits, 1 treasure chest, and a great place to grind. And now that that's all said and done, I'm pretty much ready to fight the boss. So I'm gonna heal myself up. And I'm pretty much where I wanted to be now. I've got over 80 HP, which I think is very, very comfortable. I've got 24 MP, which should allow me to finish the boss in less than 10 turns if I do everything correctly. And I also have 13 points put into my wind. And you can see I now have Wind Cutter level 3. So I'm really excited for this boss battle. I think it'll be a lot of fun. And I know as a kid this boss battle was tough. It was insanely tough. And that's why I recommend grinding at the start of the game. If you can take care of this boss with no problem, then I think the rest of the game just becomes a lot easier. So in the next video, we are going to face up against the thief. We're going to come face to face with him, and hopefully we will be able to defeat him and get back everybody's stolen goods. So thank you all so very much for watching, and I hope that I will see you next time.